Yeah, missing chairs. Okay, so I think we can start. Yep. So hello, welcome to this session. My name is Tristan. I'm really happy to be with you today. I hope you enjoyed yesterday's session. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend, but I'm sure you got some good stuff with the keynote and all the sessions. So I'm just gonna quickly present myself. Sorry for those who attended my session just before. This will be a little bit of repetitive, but anyway. So, is it working? Oh no, I forgot to. Okay, better now. So, my name is Tristan. I am a Power BI consultant at Azeo. Can you hear me at the back? Yeah? Okay. So, I'm working at Azeo, a Microsoft partner in France, where I'm mostly in charge of developing Power BI activities around consulting services, trainings, awareness, and so on. Back in February 2017, I co-founded the Paris Power BI user group, namely Club Power BI. You may have heard about it. So it's quite exciting to see this community growing so fast. We have around 450 members so far. And we organize monthly meetups in Paris about any topics related to Power BI, such as Power Query, DAX, data visualization, but also connected technologies such as Power Apps, Flow, and so on. So if you come to Paris, just feel free to join us, either for attending or speaking at the event. It's better for you if you can speak French or understand it at least. Also, feel free to follow me on Twitter and LinkedIn. I'm quite active on these social networks. I share a lot of things around Power BI, data analytics, data visualization, including my own work, my own dashboards on Power BI that I published on the Data Stories Gallery. Okay, so the session of today is not about data visualization. It's not about preparing beautiful dashboards, but it's about Power Query in action. So I have a lot of things to show you. Hopefully we have time to cover everything. We're gonna see in detail the user interface of Power Query, and we'll really see the tool in action with concrete demos. Well, I always show this slide in any of my Power BI presentations, the dashboard iceberg. As you may know, you can produce awesome dashboards in Power BI, right? With beautiful visuals, custom visuals, and so on. But this is only the visible part of the iceberg. Before to do so, you need to do a lot of things, such as connecting to data, cleansing, modeling, creating some relationships between your table, analyzing the data, creating the KPIs, probably using DAX functions, visualizing, choosing the best graphs, the best colors, and then sharing. Okay, so these are the steps that you could apply in any of your self-service BI or let's say Power BI projects, right? Once and only once you perform all these steps, you are able to deliver a dashboard. And this is really important to have this in mind. In this session, we will clearly focus on these two, okay? Connecting to data and then cleansing, right? This part is critical because, as you may know, and I'm sure that's why you're here today, the data that you have in your business is not very clean. It's actually surely poor. So you always need to reshape it, to reorganize it in order to prepare it for analysis. And that's obviously where data cleansing comes in. And that's where Power Query is so powerful. These steps are also very time consuming. It is estimated that on average, data analysts and data scientists, on average, on a given project, they spend nearly 80% of their time cleaning and preparing data. So it's massive, it's a lot. So we will see how Power BI and Power Query helps you reduce this time to focus on what really matters, that is to say, the sharing, the visualizing, and so on. Last thing about this slide, usually you do things in this order, right? We connect to data, we clean it, we model it, and so on. But, and this is really important, this will drive, I would say, yeah, the beginning of this session, is when you are doing some cleansing, you need to be aware of how you're going to model the data, right? So you always start by importing and cleaning the data, but you are preparing your data from something else, right? And this something else is the data model. So it means that when you are actually using the Power Query editor, you are supposed that you're already supposed to know what will be the grain of your tables, what will be their roles, what they are supposed to provide to the business users, right? So I think that when you are using Power Query, you have to be aware of the modeling concerns. So this will be the agenda. We'll start, as I said, by some modeling and storage considerations that you have to be aware of because they clearly impact how you should prepare and clean data in Power Query. And then we will see through demos, really concrete stuff, robust data cleansing, leveraging advanced transformations in the editor. We'll see the difference between merge and append. I see a lot of confusions at my clients about these two features of Power Query. We'll leverage functions and parameters to understand and rebuild the combined binaries experience. So this is a bit a strange expression to say that this is when you are trying to combine or append some files which are on the same folder, which is either local or a SharePoint folder, let's say. Okay, so this is the agenda. Let's start by the modeling and storage considerations. You have to know that the optimized schema, the optimized way you should model your data in Power BI is what we call the start schema, right? With denormalized dimensions surrounding your fact tables, right? You also have to be aware that Power Query is using a technology which is called vertiback or X velocity, which basically means that the data is stored not row by row, but column by column. This is what we call a columnar storage. So this is really important because obviously it impacts the way you should prepare your data in Power Query. So let me give you an example. This column, I don't know if you can see at the back, with let's imagine that we have 1 million rows with just 2 values. This will have a good compression. Why? Because this engine, the vertiback, has advanced algorithms such as dictionaries encoding and so on to compress and optimize the storage of the data. And it's based on what we call the cardinality of your columns. That is to say, the number of unique values that each of your columns have in your databases. So if you have this column, it will have a really good compression. Okay, only two distinct values, so a very low cardinality. This will be really a good compression. This one, so yeah, we have 1,000 rows. We have 1,000 distinct values. So the cardinality of this column is very high. The compression will not be so good, okay? So these are typically the fact that you should be aware of. And you're gonna tell me, okay, but I'm here to attend a session about Power Query. What is that? This is modeling, right? Well, not exactly, because as I said, it clearly impacts how you should prepare your data. What the star schema shows, for example, is that you should not perform so many joins in Power Query. I know that many people, especially those who come from the SQL Server, SQL background, they do a lot of joins, okay? They love merging data. It's also true for Excel people because they are used to bringing in all the data in the same table so they can produce pivot tables. This is absolutely not what you should do in Power BI, okay? Because, as I said, this is optimized for a star schema. These things also impact how you should prepare your facts and your dimensions. So we're gonna focus on these two. The first one is the fact table. How you should prepare, ideally, your fact tables using Power Query. So this is an example, okay, a small table, which has many columns, one by month, actually, okay, by salesman. So this is a short and wide table. Because now you know that Power BI uses columnar storage, it's not really good optimized because I have many columns, and each of these columns have a high cardinality. Let's imagine that we have, I don't know, millions of rows like this, okay? So you should always prefer this table, which is at the bottom, to this table. So always long and narrow, better than short and wide. Why? Just because what we said just before. Power BI uses columnar storage. In this type of table, we have less columns. The cardinality of the pivoted month here is pretty low. And I have a single column where the cardinality might be high. To do this kind of transformation, you can use Power Query and the unpivot functionality. I will show you with concrete examples how you can leverage this function within Power Query. Yeah, two pros, as I said, better storage, and also this kind of structure makes it easier for your business users to analyze the data. Think about it. Power BI is a self-service BI tool, right? At the end of the day, you want to provide insights, you want to provide dashboards to your company, but you want to make sure that even non-technical users can benefit from your cleansing, right? And trust me, this database structure will make it way easier for your business users to drill down, adjust the grain of the data, right? So dimensions now. Let's have a look at this one. Geographic table, which maps for each city code, a city, a country, a subcontinent, and a continent. Okay, so pretty basic. Well, I'm going to show you with this example why you should do all the opposite of what I just said with the fact tables. With the dimension tables, you should always put as much information as you can. You should make them as complete as you can. Why? Simply because on average, it is estimated that these tables, all the dimension tables of your models, in general, they represent between 15 and 20% of the total storage of the model. Okay, so even if you're making them big, you're only playing with a fifth of the total storage of the model, right? So this is the first pro. If you make them complete with many, many different columns, it has a minor impact on performance and storage. And also think about it, these columns, country, subcontinent, and continent, basically they have a very low cardinality, right? At least you have maximum 200 countries in the world and probably 5 or 7 continents. So you could have, I don't know, maybe 2 billion rows here, or like all the cities in all the countries in the world. At the end of the day, these columns, they will have a very low cardinality, right? So you will know that, because we know that Power BI uses columnar storage, these columns will be really good compressed. And this, again, will be a major impact, a major positive impact for your business users, right? Because it will give them the ability to drill down and to adjust the grain of the data. Think about it. If you have a fact table which only has the city code, if you made the effort to make this dimension table as complete as possible, it will have a minor impact on the performance and the storage, but it will really give your business users and yourself the ability to adjust the grain of the data. Okay? So these are the points that we should have in mind when using Power Query. Now, enough of the theory. Let's roll our sleeves up and let's clean some data. So I'm gonna show you concrete examples leveraging the features of the Power Query, the query editor, sorry. So the first thing we said is robust data cleansing. So we'll start, which is basically real data. It comes from TfL, Transport from London, and it gives you the numbers of cars accidents in London and in other boroughs in the UK by year, okay, by type. So I have the casualties, here I have the collisions, and by type of injured, like fatal, serious, and slight. Okay, so unless you're a genius or unless you know these figures by heart, I think you won't be able to give me some insights about this report, right? So we need to reshape it, we need to reorganize it in order to provide some good information. And obviously, we will use Power Query to do that. So there are a couple of transformations that we will need to do. There are empty cells here. There are empty cells here as well. There are merged cells. The data is not pivoted or unpivoted. So we'll see how we can do it. Okay. So I just open Power BI, connect to this Excel file, which should be around here. Okay. I'm gonna grab this table in Power Query. Okay, edit. So maybe I can make a very, I don't know what is your level in Power Query. I guess it's quite heterogeneous. So I'll just quickly present the query editor. So this is basically the back end of your Power BI models. This is where you are preparing, cleaning your data prior to loading it. Basically, it has a very rich interface from which even non-technical users can clean their data and perform very advanced transformations. And most of the time through user-friendly buttons, right? So you have many, many buttons that allows you to reshape the data. And what is good with this example, which is again real data, is that it will allow us to cover, yeah, a pretty good number of features of the query editor. Well, so let's go and clean this database. The first thing I want to do is to get rid of these null elements. Actually, I want to fill them. So here the arrow indicates that all the information here relates to collisions, and then all the information on the other columns, I may find it here, relates to casualties, right? So I want to fill in this information because I want to do some stats. And I know that Power BI hates when there are null cells. I want to make sure there is all the information that I need. So unfortunately, in Power BI, in Power Query, you cannot fill left or fill right. You can only fill up and down, or down. So in order to clean this data, what I need to do first is to transpose this database, okay? So consider this database which has 141 columns, so pretty large number of columns, and only 762 rows. Consider it as a matrix. And to perform our transformations, I'm simply going to transpose it. So there is a button for that. I'm going to transform, and I will just, oh, come on. I always use the French version. Oh yeah, transpose. Okay, sorry. So this is the transposed version of the table. As you can see, the steps are recorded at the right side. There is an underlying language which is running behind, and it is called the Power Query Formula Language, the M language. Some users don't necessarily need to be aware of this language, okay? Because as I said, there are some buttons which can do the job for you. You can at any time delete these steps or go back to the step, see what was the structure of the step, of the database at this step. And you can at any time amend any of the steps. So this is the transposed version of the matrix, of the table. And now I can find my elements here, collisions and so on. So I will simply select these two columns where I need to fill in the information. And I will go to transform and fill down. So this is a smart fill down. It takes into account the last non-empty cell in each of the columns that I've previously selected. And it does exactly what I needed. It fills down the information. Great. I'm gonna now merge the content of these three columns into one single column. Sorry, I'm gonna amend this step. As you can see, pretty convenient. I will use a separator, which will be, let's say, yeah, we're gonna use, why not, this. Okay, so I am merging the content of these three columns into a single column here. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I'm gonna transpose back my matrix, my table, and use these elements as a header. Okay? So we had this, we transposed the table, we filled down the information, we merged the three first columns, and we transposed back because we wanted to use this new single field as a header. So just an information, I think we'll be able to share with you the slides and the files. So you will be able to see the steps and so on after the session. And I am currently recording the session on YouTube. So I will also provide you the actual video, yeah. So, okay, we can continue cleaning this data. The thing I want to do now is I'm going to unpivot this database. This column is okay, but these ones, I have the information column by column, like collisions and each year and each type. Ideally, as I said in the introduction, in your fact table, each dimension, each element should have its own column, right? So this is the case for these columns, but this is not the case for all the other columns of my database. So I will simply use these three columns and I will unpivot all the other columns which are currently in my database. And this will drastically reduce the number of columns. Okay, I only have now 5 columns in my database. I have much more rows because it has created one row per each element. And remember what we said at the beginning, columnar storage, cardinality, and so on. This will truly optimize the storage of this database. And again, we'll see it in a sec. This will make the analysis way easier. So I can split back these columns by using the delimiter that I used here. Okay, so now it starts to seem pretty good. Okay, I can actually rename this to have good headers. Okay, camera type. Collision casualties. Here, accident type and number. Okay, I can take care of the format as well, the best practice. Transform this as a text. And this is a whole number. I want to get rid of these annoying arrows. Okay, here. So there is a button for that. Again, replace value, replace this by nothing, and replace the other arrows, which are like this, by nothing. Okay, great. So as you can see, without coding, with a few steps using buttons, I could start from this weird and not really easy to consume report to this pretty useful and easy to understand database, where I clearly understand the role of each of these columns, and I can really now create a useful and insightful dashboard. Well, this is not the aim of the session to create a dashboard from this database, so I'm not gonna do this now. But obviously, you can imagine how much easier it is now to analyze the data. Okay, so I will just quickly close and apply the steps. So it will load the updated version of the database. And I will just do some stuff like maybe by borrow the number size, I guess. Okay, something like this, and maybe by accident type. Again, the number of accidents. Okay, huge number of slides, fortunately. Okay, so as you can see, this is now so much easier for me to analyze this data. Now, what I can show you, so we saw the robust cleansing, mainly leveraging the power of transpose and unpivot features. I'm going to show you something which is sometimes confusing for people using Power Query, is the difference between merge and append. Okay, so I have another data set for that, which will be this one. So I'm on another Power BI desktop file. I have three very simple tables. One is some IDs of some employees with the name. I have their IDs and their job, okay? And I have a table which is new employee with new IDs and new names, okay? So as I said in the introduction, you should not perform so many joins in Power Query, but I will still show you these features and why you should not get confused between merge and append. Okay, so merge query is basically when you want to grab data from a table and bring in this data to another table, or compare the content of two tables and retrieving the comparison table, right? So I'm gonna quickly show you some examples which are pretty basic. I will go to this tab, for example. I will go to merge queries, and I have two options available to me. I can either merge queries from this query, or I can either merge query as new. So these are exactly the same features. The only difference is that the second one will create another query, another separate query, from which I will be able to merge the content of my tables. So I'll just select the second one, merge as new, and we'll do the easiest merge which will be I want to bring in the information about the jobs in this table. So I'll just select this and the jobs. I have a common key from which I will do a left outer join. Outer join, sorry. So, sorry. These are all the merge that are available in Power Query. Left outer, right outer, full outer, inner. Okay. So these are all the types of joins you can perform to compare the content of different tables. In this case, I just want to bring in the information about the jobs into the employees table. This is absolutely not a best practice because, as I said, you should keep your tables separate. It's just to show you these features in action. So I click on OK, and it creates a brand new query, okay, which gives me the content of the employees and the information that I can extract. I will just extract the job in this case. So this was a left outer join. Actually, I'm not going to show you the other features. There are some pretty good ones to compare, like left anti and so on. There is actually an MVP, a Microsoft Data Platform MVP, who built a Power BI dashboard on the Power Query joins. So this, I think this is one of the smartest idea I've ever seen in this data stories gallery. How many of you know this gallery? Yeah, quite a few. Okay, so many good resources, awesome dashboards, especially mine. No, I'm joking. Now this one is actually really, really good, and you can easily interact with. I will provide you with the link. No worries. So basically, you have two tables. Okay, table A, table B, and these are the different joins that are available in Power Query, and you can see the results of these joins when we are comparing the content of table A and table B. So I think this is really useful because it really helps you visualize the different joins. And if you deliver yourself some trainings to your colleagues, this will definitely help them understand the different merge. Okay, so this was the merge part. And now the append part. Okay, so we did merge. Now I'm going to show you the append, which is completely different. And for some reason, some people use append because they think it's going to merge the queries. Well, not exactly. Append queries allow you to combine the content of 1, 2, 3, or any number of tables, which should have the same format, okay, and which will you will put one below another one. So I'm going to quickly show you an example. This one is the employees table. This one is the new employees table. They have exactly the same format with two columns, ID name, ID name. I want to have a single table which concatenates the content of these two tables. So to do so, this won't be a merge, right? This will be an append as new, and I will simply combine the content of these two tables. As you can see, I can combine the content of more tables. Here, I'm just combining the content of two tables, which are new employees, or let's say employees, the primary table, and the second table will be the new employees. So, and again, okay, so now we have, okay, what shall we do? A test again? Okay. Yeah, okay. Okay. So I am appending the content of these two tables. They have the same format. This is not a join. And there we go. There we go. I have merged the content of the first table and the second table. Okay. So I really wanted to show you this, which seemed to be basic for most of you, I guess. But trust me, I see so many people getting confused between these two features. So actually, yeah, we still have about 25 minutes. So I'm going to show you now this append feature in action with a real business context, which is combining the content of multiple files which are on the given folder. You have native ways to do so in Power Query. This is called the combined binaries experience. So I'm gonna quickly show you the case. Okay, thank you. Okay. So here is the use case. I have 3 Excel sheets which are in the same folder called sales. This is the path of the folder. I will show you one of these Excel sheets. They have exactly the same format. Okay. These are the sales that I make in my company with my distributors channel, online channel, and shop channel, right? So they have I will just close this one. We don't need it anymore. Okay. So they have exactly the same format. Let's suppose these are sales in dollars, right? I have them by country and continent. So you could actually leverage the combined binaries experience in Power Query. I will, I will do it. Yeah, why not in this one, which we haven't used. So actually, if I go to get data, so these are all the connectors which are available in Power Query. Sorry, more than 70 different connectors. The folder connector is part of it, and the SharePoint folder as well. So you can easily combine the content of multiple files. So I'll just grab the content of this folder, and I will copy and paste it. And this will basically allow me to combine and thus perform some append, okay, the content of each of these table into a brand new single table. But yeah, let's do it. I'm sure you have all done it before. This feature has changed maybe a few months ago, and it's a bit surprising. I mean, the behavior of this thing is not so understandable for those who are not really at ease with Power Query. So it basically asks you to choose which sheet between all the sheets which are available in a given folder you want to append. So here I'm saying I want to append the content of the sheet sales which are in each of the files. And this is quite a bit surprising what is happening. I mean, we're going to see it in the editor. We have here, I guess. Yeah. So this is what happened. This has created a sample query with some strange parameters, hidden queries, functions, and the given stuff, which is really not nicely formatted because each of these files at first, they are not really formatted correctly. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to show you how you can rebuild and understand the behavior of the combined binaries experience. And to do so, I will quickly introduce you to functions and parameters. So I'm going to, in order to avoid confusion, I'm going to open a brand new, I will open a brand new Power BI. And I will quickly show you maybe here on this file. Yeah, on this file, I will introduce you the parameters. So parameters are really useful features within Power BI and Power Query. They help you make your M and Power Query code very clean and easy to maintain and understand. So you can create parameters from here, from the Manage Parameters section. So I'll just create a new parameter. These parameters have a name. Let's say we're going to call it source test. You can give a description. You can give them a type. Let's say it's a text. And what I do actually is that I will grab this source, okay, the content of this source, Just check. Yeah. So, and I will store it in a parameter. So again, test source. I really recommend you to use short and understandable parameters name. It will be a text, which will can come from any value. So basically, the user can choose any value, or a list of values that are predetermined by you, the one who is creating the parameter. In this case, I would just put any value, and his current value will be this one. So this creates a parameter here that is available in all my queries, and I can reference it in any of my queries. So for example, here, rather than having to typing in the source manually, and each time there is a refresh or the source changes, I have to amend each of my sources, I can simply reference here my parameter. So this means that, for example, you have a case where you have, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 queries which reference the same source. Just store them in a parameter, and it will make your code so much easier. You will just have to update your parameter once if the source is changed, and all the queries will be updated. So this is one of the advantages of parameters. I will show you another one. For example, let's imagine that we want to create a parameter to filter some data. So I don't know, let's say I'm going to create a new parameter, which will be called accident. And I will give it a type text as well, which have, from a list of values, I will put fatal, serious, and slight. The default value will be fatal, and the current value will be fatal as well. Okay, so here I have my brand new parameter, and I can use these parameters in each of the queries of my Power BI desktop file. So here I can, for example, let's imagine that we want to filter our data. I can say, okay, I want to filter this data by my parameter here. So I'll choose parameter, and I will choose my accidents parameter, right? So this will basically apply the step and only slice the data for fatal. Okay, so this is completely useless, but it's just to introduce you the power of parameters. And you need to understand this feature in order to understand how the combined binaries work. Okay, so that's it for the parameters. We're gonna use this feature to combine the content of this file. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna create a query from an Excel. I will just pick one of the files. I will have a query, which I'm gonna turn into a function. So this is one of the most important part of this demo, is how to turn a query into a function. And then I will leverage the parameter feature with the function to combine the content of the files. So I have so many things open. Let me quickly check. This one. Okay. So here is the content of my Excel file, right? I'm gonna quickly clean it very quickly. So here I can use my first row as a header. I can fill down the information here, probably get rid of the null values. I don't need them anymore. I will just split the columns by delimiter. It's good because you can see all the features of the editor. I will just name this continent, city, and country. And one last step that you all know now is the fact that I want to unpivot these database, right? So these columns are okay. I'm going to unpivot all the other columns which are in my database and put this as year and this as number. Okay, so I cleaned one of the 3 files which are in this folder, right? So now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to turn this query into a function. So I'll go to the advanced editor, and I will just pass a parameter, which is not the same as the parameter I just shown you. This parameter, it will be local to my function. I will name it, for example, source file. Source file, yep. I will make it as a text. Right? So this is how you pass a parameter to a query. Okay, so this will basically turn the query you just created into a function. And because I want to make this dynamic, I'm going to quickly replace this. I just take this file, source file. Okay, so this is the parameter I am passing to the function. Done. So which used to be a query is now a function. Okay. And this function, I can leverage it by invoking a parameter, or no, not a parameter, sorry, but in this case, a text value. So for example, I'm just gonna put what I've just removed in the code. Okay, so this is basically the source of the file we have just cleaned. Okay, and I will invoke it. So this will create a query with the parameter, the local parameter of the file. But the good news is that I can invoke any of the files which are currently in the folder because they have the same structure, right? So for example, let's imagine that I do the same for my shop. I don't know if it's shop or shops, I don't remember. Yeah, it works. So here is the content in the clean version of my shop Excel file, which exactly has the same format, but with different data than my distributors, right? So now we have a function which can clean any of the files which are currently in the folder. I'm going to use this function to append in one single query the content of these three files. And this is exactly what is happening behind the scene when you are doing the combined binaries feature, which is native in Power Query. So I'm gonna get rid of these two queries. Okay. I'm going to connect to the famous folder. So I'll just select the folder source. And rather than combining and using the native feature of Power Query, we're going to do it ourselves, right? So I will go to Edit. And I will just, so this is basically the attributes of each of the files. This is where you can combine their contents. But what I will do here is that I will simply keep the folder path and the name of the file, right? So I'll just keep these two columns and remove all the columns, right? So here I have my name and the actual folder path that I want to query. Now the idea is to leverage the function we have just created together to combine dynamically the content of each of these files. So as you may know in Power Query, you can add some columns which are either custom, you can write some M code and reference other columns, and you can also invoke custom functions. That's, as you can guess, what we will do here. I will create a new column in this query, which we will call, I don't know, maybe data. In this column, I want to use my function sales, which basically doesn't have a good name. Maybe it would be a best practice to rename it. And remember, when we created this sales function, it had one parameter, which was basically the source of the file, right? So actually, I'm going to rename this function get data, okay, to make it a little bit cleaner. And this one will be sales. So again, add column, invoke a custom function, which I will name data. I will invoke the get data function, and this function will take as a parameter one of the column of the current database. And here you can see that there is a problem because it will only accept one of the columns. Okay, and the problem is I want to have as a parameter the content concatenated of name and folder path, right? Because if I just reference my name parameter here, distributors.xlsx, it will not work because it needs to know in which folder we have to leverage the function. So to do so, I will just create a custom column in which I will concatenate the content. Oh, sorry, it has to be in this order: folder path and name. Okay. And thus, I will be able to leverage my function, data, get data, and custom. Okay, good. So now it's working. I'm gonna get rid of these columns. I don't need anymore. So I have the content of each of my tables, each of my Excel files in single tables that you can see at the bottom on the preview. Okay, so this one actually works. I'm gonna show you a smarter way to do so by leveraging the parameters I've just introduced you before. So rather than having to create a custom column and concatenating the content of the two columns, I'm gonna actually store the folder path into a parameter, right? So I will create a parameter which will be named folder path, right? It will be text, any values. I think it's this one, yep. So this is my parameter. And what I will do here is that in my function, so this can be a bit confusing, but there is a parameter which can be used in any of my queries, right? So for example, if I create a new query, I can reference this folder path query in other queries because it is available to all my queries, right? And this is what I've just explained before. This is the interest of parameters. But there is also within the function a local parameter, okay, which you should not get confused with the other parameter. And this local parameter is not available in the other queries, right? So if I create a blank query and I reference source file, it will simply not work, right? Because this parameter is local to the function. So in the advanced editor, I have this parameter which is local to my function, but I will also reference the global parameter, the folder path parameter here. So I will just do folder path, I guess, and source file. Actually, I need to add this. Okay, so now my function is able to get a content of any Excel file which are in this folder, and it can accept any source file which are passed as a parameter just here. So if I go back to my sales table, I will just get rid of this. We'll do it all over again. So here is my source. And now I don't even need my folder path anymore, my folder path column, because I made it the effort to store it in a parameter. So I'll just go here, remove all the other columns. Now I have just the name of the file, of each file which are currently in my folder. I'm gonna invoke my function, which I will call data, and it will reference just the name of the file. Because it has stored the folder path within the function. Here, oh, it was supposed to work. Let me check. Distributors, maybe it's in the function. Oh, we simply didn't save folder path. Okay. So let me check. Yep. So here, yeah, there we go. So we have the content of our files in each of the rows of the table, and then I can easily expand. And there we go. Maybe I can quickly split column, or no, actually extract here. I can extract before delimiter, before the dot. And there we go. So we managed to rebuild the content, the combined binaries feature by leveraging a global parameter, a function which has a local parameter, and finally we end up with a very clean and understandable database that is really easy to consume for your business users. The last thing I want to show you is that I'm going to close and apply these queries. I'll build a very, very quick dashboard, and I will show you one other feature which are really good in parameters, for the parameters. So for example, let's say that we want to see the content of the sales. Actually, this, I didn't take care of the formats. So this has to be an integer. Okay. So I just want to see this by continent, and maybe I'll just create a quick graph. I want to see by years my data. Okay, great. The good news is that because we used our own logic to rebuild the combined binaries experience, we can amend and edit the parameters from the report views, which means that if you deploy a report, you used everything on your own, you built all this logic because you understand Power Queries and so on, and you can send this kind of report to other people, and they can change the value of the parameter without having to understand the functions, the parameters, and so on, because you can edit parameters from the report view. So this is really good. This is the global parameter we just created. So the current value is this folder path. And actually, I have another folder, which is called test, which has another path, which has only the content of these two files, right? They have the same structure as the one before with different data. So I'll just also do this, and yeah. So I'm just gonna amend my parameter and take this new folder path to amend my report. So I'll just leave this. So here is the brand new folder path. I click on OK. This applies the steps in the back end in Power Query. So I need to apply the changes so Power Query loads the updated version of the data. So I will just apply the changes. Okay. Test. Okay, there we go. Okay, I should. This is because, yeah. So this is what we call a demo effect. Yeah, obviously it's supposed to change. Let me just check. So here we have an example when you want to audit what is happening. And the steps here are really useful to help you understand what is happening. So I'll just refresh. Which one?
Going to the source parameters, the first step.
Yeah, the source. Oh, yeah.
It's hard to predict, it's not using a parameter.
Yeah, but actually, am I in the wrong? No, it's.
Still have shot.
Exactly, you're right. So this has to be exactly. You're right. So you have to put the parameter here, plus then yeah, exactly. And now there we go. I forgot to apply this step. And now you can apply the updated version of your database with all the data clean. Actually, you were right. I had just forgotten to make this source dynamic to use my parameter here in the source of my query. So here are the things I wanted to show you on Power Query. We saw in less than an hour pretty good stuff. If we want just to summarize, transpose, unpivot, the fact that you can merge and append, we saw the differences between these two features. The fact that you can leverage parameters and functions to rebuild and understand the combined binaries experience. So I hope you could grab a lot of stuff, and thank you very much for attending this session.